I'm Esther, 34, female. I live in a small, quiet city, in a condo that I bought myself 2 years ago. I work as a digital archivist for a university, a job that suits my meticulous and patient nature. My life has always been orderly and planned, a stark contrast to the chaos that my family seems to thrive on. For years, I was the silent supporter, the financial bedrock they all took for granted. That all changed the day my own mother banned me from Thanksgiving over an apology I refused to give. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The phone call that blew up my life came on a Tuesday. It was my mother, Linda. Her voice was tight with a familiar, manufactured drama. "Esther, we need to talk about Thanksgiving," I sighed, leaning back in my office chair. "Mom, it's 2 weeks away. What's wrong?" "It's your sister," she said, her tone dripping with disappointment. "Megan is very hurt. She told me you refused to help her with the down payment for the new house." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Help her? She didn't ask me to help, Mom. She demanded I give her $40,000. She said I owed it to her because I didn't have kids and had all that spare income." "Esther, you know how hard things are for them," Mom replied, her voice turning pleading. "Tom lost his job again. They have 2 children to think about. You have a good job. It's your duty to help your family." This was a well-worn path in our family conversations. My success wasn't a source of pride for them. It was a resource to be tapped. For years, I had been the family safety net. I paid for my parents' mortgage after my dad, Richard, retired and his pension came up short. I funded my sister's influencer career, buying her cameras and equipment. I covered the bill for lavish family vacations I was often too busy working to fully enjoy. I did it because I loved them, and I thought they loved me. "It's not my duty to finance her life, Mom," I said, my voice firm but quiet. I offered to help them with a budget to connect Tom with a recruiter. She called me selfish and hung up. "Well, you were being selfish," Mom snapped. "Family comes first. Your father and I have discussed it. You're banned from Thanksgiving until you apologize to your sister and give her the money she needs. You need to learn that your money isn't just for you." I was stunned into silence. Banned from Thanksgiving, the one holiday I truly cherished, the one time of year I let myself believe we were a normal, loving family. All because I refused to hand over a sum of money that amounted to a down payment on a small house. "Are you serious?" I finally whispered. "Completely," she said, her voice cold. "The choice is yours, Esther. Be a part of this family, or be on your own. Let me know what you decide." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, the silence of my apartment deafening, the receiver still pressed to my ear. The ultimatum wasn't just about money, it was about control. They thought they had backed me into a corner. They had no idea they had just set me free. After that phone call, a strange sense of calm washed over me. The shock gave way to a cold, hard clarity. For years, I had been living in a fog of obligation, guilted into shouldering financial burdens that were never mine to carry. The Thanksgiving ultimatum wasn't an attack. It was a gift. It was permission to finally put myself first. The next few days were a barrage of passive-aggressive texts and voicemails. My sister, Megan, sent me links to the house she wanted, a sprawling 5-bedroom monstrosity they couldn't possibly afford. Wouldn't this be an amazing place for future family gatherings? One text read, followed by a winky face emoji. She was acting as if the $40,000 was a done deal, a minor inconvenience I needed to sort out. My father left a voicemail that was somehow worse. "Esther, your mother is in tears," he said, his voice heavy with false sorrow. "You're tearing this family apart over a little bit of money. Just be a good daughter and do the right thing." A little bit of money. I looked around my modest 2-bedroom condo. I had worked 60-hour weeks for years to save for this place. I drove a 10-year-old car and rarely took vacations for myself. Every spare dollar I had went into a savings account, an account my family viewed as their personal slush fund. The most audacious demand came from my brother-in-law, Tom. He called me directly, his voice slick with a salesman's charm. "Hey, Esther, Meg told me about the little misunderstanding. Look, once we get this house, we're thinking of putting in a pool. I know you love to swim. Consider this an investment in your own future fun." He laughed as if he'd just told the cleverest joke in the world. An investment. He wanted me to invest a $40,000 of my retirement savings into a swimming pool for his family, while he hadn't held a steady job in 5 years. The sheer entitlement was breathtaking. I didn't respond to any of them. I let the texts go unanswered and the calls go to voicemail. My silence seemed to infuriate them more than any argument could have. They were used to me explaining, justifying, and eventually caving. My refusal to engage threw them completely off balance. This wasn't how the game was played. I was supposed to come crawling back, checkbook in hand, begging for forgiveness. The final straw was an email from my mother. The subject line was "Your last chance." It contained a single sentence: "We've already told the caterers you won't be coming, so you have until Friday to wire Megan the money, or your spot at the table is gone for good." Attached was a ridiculously overpriced catering menu for their Thanksgiving feast. They weren't just banning me, they were flaunting the very money they were demanding from me. It was cruel, and it was calculated. And it was the last piece of motivation I needed. For years, I'd handled my family's finances with a sense of resigned duty. Now, I approached it like an archaeological dig, determined to unearth the full extent of their dependence on me. I worked as a digital archivist, so organization was my superpower. I had records of everything. I spent that weekend locked in my home office, fueled by coffee and a simmering rage. I pulled up bank statements, credit card bills, and old emails, creating a master spreadsheet. I titled it "The Ledger of Ungrateful Dependence." The numbers were staggering. It started small, 10 years ago, when I first got a good job out of college. A few $100s here and there to help my parents with a bill. A loan to Megan for a new laptop that was never repaid. But over time, the amounts had grown exponentially. 5 years ago, I'd taken over my parents' mortgage payments entirely. They had told me it was temporary, just until Dad's pension sorted itself out. The spreadsheet showed I had paid over $90,000 towards their house. I discovered I was also paying for their property taxes, their home insurance, and a premium cable package with every channel imaginable. Then there was Megan and Tom. I had been paying for their car insurance for 3 years. I was covering their cell phone bills under a family plan, where only I seemed to pay the bill. I found the receipts for the thousands of dollars of camera equipment for Megan's failed influencer career. The designer clothes she claimed were business expenses. And the online courses Tom took on how to become a millionaire, which apparently didn't work. The grand total was shocking. Over the past decade, I had given my family, not loaned, but given, over $250,000, $250,000. The money I thought was helping them was, in fact, enabling them. It was funding a lifestyle they couldn't afford and had no intention of working for. As I stared at the final figure at the bottom of the spreadsheet, I felt a wave of nausea. All the sacrifices I had made, the double shifts, the cancelled trips, the frugal living, it had all gone to prop up their delusions of grandeur. They weren't just ungrateful, they were financial vampires, and I had been their willing victim for far too long. The most damning discovery came late on Sunday night. While digging through old email threads, I found an exchange between my mother and my sister from last Christmas. I had given my parents a generous check to help them fix their leaking roof. In the email, my mother told Megan, "Don't worry about the money for the ski trip. Esther came through with the roof money again. We'll just patch it ourselves and use the rest for the condo in Aspen." They hadn't even fixed the roof. They had lied to me and used the money for a luxury vacation, all while complaining about how tight money was. The betrayal was so profound, so deeply cynical, that it extinguished the last lingering embers of familial obligation in my heart. The ledger was complete. It was no longer just a spreadsheet. It was my declaration of independence. With the ledger complete, I had the what. Now I needed the how. How was I propping up this entire ecosystem of dependence? I spent the next few days meticulously tracing every financial connection I had to my family. It was a web of automatic payments, direct deposits, and shared accounts that I had set up over the years for the sake of convenience. Their convenience, not mine. The first and biggest artery was the mortgage. I had set up an automatic transfer from my savings account to my parents' checking account on the 25th of every month. It was a significant amount, enough to cover the mortgage and then some. This was the primary source of their disposable income, the fund that paid for ski trips and catering companies. Next, I looked at the bills. The family cell phone plan was in my name. Megan and Tom's car insurance was a rider on my own policy, a multi-car discount. That saved them money and cost me a fortune. The premium cable and internet package at my parents' house was also linked directly to my credit card. They probably didn't even know how to pay a bill themselves. I also had my parents listed as authorized users on one of my oldest credit cards, an emergency measure we'd set up after my dad had a health scare a few years back. I checked the statement, emergency, had come to mean weekly gourmet grocery runs, subscriptions to wine, of them, month clubs, and regular purchases from high-end clothing stores. This wasn't just helping out. This was a systematic siphoning of my income. Each automatic payment was a thread in the net they had cast over me. They had woven it so slowly and carefully over the years that I had never even noticed I was trapped. My rage was now quiet and focused. It was the calm focus of a bomb disposal expert. I needed to be precise. I couldn't just cut them off haphazardly. I had to do it in a way that was clean, legal, and irreversible. That's when I thought of my uncle, my mother's brother, Ben. Uncle Ben was a financial advisor, a no-nonsense man who had always kept a respectful distance from our family's drama. He sent birthday cards with a crisp $20 bill and always called on holidays, but he never got involved. He had seen the way my family operated and wisely stayed on the sidelines. I called him Uncle Ben. I said, my voice steady, "It's Esther. I need some professional advice." I met him at his office the next day. I didn't get emotional. I didn't complain about how unfair it was. I simply opened my laptop, brought up the ledger, and walked him through the numbers. I showed him the bank statements, the credit card bills, and the emails. He listened patiently, his expression growing more grim with each line item. When I was finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Esther," he said, his voice low, "I always suspected something like this was going on. I just never knew it was this bad." He looked at me, his eyes full of a sympathy I hadn't realized I was craving. "You're not their daughter," he said. "You're their primary benefactor, and they've mistaken your kindness for a weakness." He spent the next hour with me, outlining a step-by-step plan. He told me exactly how to disentangle myself, which accounts to close, which payments to stop, and how to protect myself from any potential fallout. He was methodical, professional, and entirely on my side. Walking out of his office, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I wasn't just angry anymore. I had a plan. The Friday before Thanksgiving week arrived. This was the deadline my mother had given me to apologize and wire the $40,000. I spent my lunch break systematically dismantling the financial empire I had unintentionally built for my family. It was surprisingly simple. It took less than an hour to reclaim a decade of my life. First, I logged into my online banking. I found the recurring monthly transfer to my parents' account. For 5 years, that payment had gone out like clockwork. With a few clicks, I canceled it. The river of cash that had flowed from my account to theirs was now dry. Next, the credit card. I went to the account settings and found the list of authorized users. I saw my mother's name and my father's name. Beside each was a small button that said remove. I clicked it twice. A confirmation box popped up. "Are you sure you want to remove this user?" I clicked yes, with a profound sense of satisfaction. Then came the bills. I logged into the cell phone provider's website. I switched Megan, Tom, and my parents from my family plan to their own individual pay-per-use plans. The change would be effective at the start of the next billing cycle, which was the following Monday. They would receive a notification about the change in their plan terms. I could only imagine their confusion. I called my insurance company. "Hi," I said to the agent, "I'd like to remove 2 vehicles from my policy." I gave them Megan and Tom's car details. "Their coverage will expire at midnight tonight," the agent confirmed. "Will they be getting their own policy?" "I imagine they will have to," I replied calmly. The last step was the most symbolic. I logged into my parents' cable and internet account, which I paid for. I didn't just cancel it. I downgraded their plan to the most basic, bare bones package available. They would lose hundreds of channels, and their high-speed internet would slow to a crawl. As I made the final click, I leaned back in my chair. It was done. I hadn't been angry or emotional. I had been surgical. I hadn't taken anything from them that was rightfully theirs. I had simply stopped giving them what was mine. They had given me an ultimatum: be a part of the family on their terms or be on my own. I had made my choice. I chose to be on my own with my own money. I spent the weekend in blissful peace. I went for a long hike, read a book, and cleaned my condo. My phone remained silent, the calm before the storm. They hadn't noticed yet, but they would. Oh, they would. The first domino would fall on Monday, when the new phone plans kicked in. The real chaos would begin on the 25th. when the mortgage money failed to appear. The first sign of trouble came on Monday afternoon. It was a text from Megan. "Hey, is your phone acting weird? My data is super slow." I ignored it. An hour later, a text from my mom. "Esther, the internet is down again. Can you call the company? They won't talk to me since the account is in your name." I smiled and deleted the message. The real explosion happened on the 26th, the day after the mortgage payment was due to arrive in their account. My phone started ringing at 9 a.m. and didn't stop. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail 4 times. Then Megan started calling, then my father, then Tom. It was a symphony of panic. Finally, around noon, I decided to answer. It was my mother. She was hysterical. "Esther, the mortgage payment didn't go through. The bank called. They said we're overdrawn. Did you forget to make the transfer?" "No, Mom, I didn't forget," I said, my voice perfectly level. There was a pause. "What do you mean you didn't forget?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. "I mean, I canceled the payment," I said simply. "I also removed you and Dad from my credit card, and I've made some changes to the phone and internet plans. From now on, you'll all be responsible for your own bills." I could hear her sputtering on the other end of the line. You can't do that. We'll be ruined, the bank, the house. What are we supposed to do?" "I don't know, Mom," I said, and for the first time I felt a pang of something. Not guilt, but a sad resignation. "I guess you'll have to figure it out. You told me I was banned from the family. I'm just respecting your wishes." "That's not what I meant," she shrieked. "I was just trying to teach you a lesson. You can't do this to us, after everything we've done for you." The sheer audacity of that statement almost made me laugh. "Everything you've done for me, I have a ledger, Mom, a spreadsheet of every dollar I've given this family for the past 10 years. It totals over $250,000. I've paid for your house, your vacations, your cars. What is it exactly that you have done for me?" She was silent. In the background, I could hear my sister's voice, shrill and panicked. "What's she saying? Tell her I'll take $20,000. Tell her I'll pay her back. You're being cruel, Esther," my mother finally whispered. "It's Thanksgiving week. You're ruining Thanksgiving." "No, Mom," I said, my voice soft but firm. "You were the one who put a price tag on my presence at the dinner table. You banned me. You told me to choose. I chose myself. I have to go now. Good. Bye." I hung up the phone. I blocked all their numbers. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. Thanksgiving Day was beautiful. The sky was a crisp, clear blue. I woke up without an alarm clock, made myself a cup of coffee, and sat by the window watching the leaves fall. There were no frantic calls about what time I was arriving, no passive-aggressive texts about what side dish I was supposed to bring, no underlying current of tension and obligation. There was only peace. Around noon, I drove to Uncle Ben's house. He and his wife, my Aunt Carol, greeted me with warm hugs. They hadn't asked any questions when I'd called to ask if I could join them. They just said, "We'll set an extra plate." Their home was filled with the delicious smells of roasting turkey and cinnamon. The atmosphere was light and joyful. We ate, we laughed, and we talked about books and movies and travel plans. No one mentioned my parents or my sister. No one made me feel guilty or selfish. For the first time in years, I felt like I was part of a family, not just its financier. Later that evening, my curiosity got the better of me. I unblocked Megan's number and checked her social media. Her feed, usually a curated stream of perfect family photos and sponsored posts, was eerily silent. Her last post was from 3 days prior, a picture of her kids with the caption, "So excited for our big family Thanksgiving feast. #blessed #family first." There were no pictures of the feast itself, no shots of the catered food or the beautifully set table. A day later, a mutual friend called me, her voice low and gossipy. "You will not believe what happened with Megan," she said. Apparently, her parents are in some kind of financial trouble. They had to cancel their Thanksgiving catering, and Tom's car got repossessed last night. She's an absolute wreck. I just listened, offering noncommittal sounds of surprise. I felt no joy in their downfall, but I also felt no remorse. I felt a quiet, satisfying sense of justice. They had created their own reality, a bubble of entitlement funded by my labor. I hadn't popped the bubble, I had simply stopped inflating it. In the weeks that followed, I heard through the grapevine that my parents had to take out a reverse mortgage on their house. Megan and Tom were forced to downsize to a small apartment, and Tom finally got a job working in a warehouse. They were learning the hard way the lessons of self-sufficiency I had learned years ago. I never spoke to them again. The apology they had demanded never came. Instead, I gave myself the gift of a new life, one free from guilt and financial servitude. That Thanksgiving, I lost a family, but I found myself, and for that, I am eternally grateful.